Hi everyone, welcome back to Tech Talk, a podcast where Amit and I talk about various technology related topics. Today's topic is Starlink. A lot of you will know about Starlink already. It is a new way to get internet provided by Elon Musk's SpaceX. So it is a very, very new technology, and we're both very excited to talk about it. There is a lot of things to cover, and just because it's so new, it's really exciting, and we're really looking forward to how it's going to change the landscape of internet, and how a regular user will get internet in future, and how it will change the whole experience. So yeah, Starlink, it's one of the flagship or one of the leading internet providers from satellites. So I am very excited to talk about it with Amit. So yes, Amit, what do you think of Starlink, or what is Starlink for people who don't know already?
Thanks, Rinat. Again, as you rightly mentioned, Starlink is part of SpaceX. SpaceX is a company from Elon Musk. If a lot of people don't know about Elon Musk, then Elon Musk is the guy who is currently the owner of Tesla, SpaceX, and many other companies. People would be familiar with electric vehicles. So we have discussed electric vehicles in one of our previous episodes. So please do listen to that or watch the video. But essentially, Elon Musk has created a company, SpaceX, that launches rockets, reusable rockets to space. And as part of his small company, he has opened a subsidiary called Starlink. And Starlink, the clue is in the name. So it's linking, not linking the stars, but linking satellites outside the planet Earth. Now, what is its benefit, and why is he doing that? I think we'll discuss that in the episode. But Starlink is very crucial. It's like the infrastructure, but the infrastructure is not built on the planet. It's built outside the planet, serving it. So it's a very interesting piece of technology that Elon Musk is working on through his company SpaceX. So yeah, let's explore this topic, and I'm quite excited about it, Renat.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way you put it, it's outside the planet and then serving the planet. I mean, this is the best example of thinking outside the box. I mean, this if the whole box was the Earth, then yeah, it's doing exactly that. So I think before discussing Starlink, we could just quickly talk about the journey of internet as a consumer. I mean, I remember decades ago when the internet was through telephone lines, and then it was dial-up connections with a modem, and it was really, really slow, frustratingly slow. But it was still there. Internet was at its infancy, and we were all excited about being able to connect to the world essentially. And then when the broadband came, it was a very quick turnaround. Very, very quickly, everyone who had internet changed from modem to broadband, because the benefit was exponential. I mean, the speed from kbps, it went to mbps really quickly, and the whole experience of using internet changed. I mean, in a dial-up modem, you couldn't think about a site like YouTube ever being popular, because it just wasn't practical to watch videos after videos. Even Skype was, most of the time when I had conversation in Skype was, can you hear me? Or can you hear me now? Or that was most of the conversation. But now we're, replacing GSM mobile phone and landlines and everything with, voice over IP and everything. So that shift, I mean, there was a big shift. It was, the whole landscape was changed because of this. And I'm kind of anticipating and hoping that Starlink would also bring about the same kind of exponential difference in internet usage altogether. And one of the things that it promises is, bringing in a lot more people who currently don't have access because they live in remote areas. within, bring them online, and then that increases the whole market, like the e-commerce market. And there's so many other positive implications of that, starting from expansion of e-commerce to going towards, making internet accessible to underprivileged or third world countries, where people could, have access to a lot of educational content, so they can improve themselves, and they can make their skills available in the global market, so they can also provide the skills they have and the knowledge they have. And yeah, I'm just really excited that how it will change the whole paradigm of internet.
It will, and I think that's the aim of Elon Musk, because as you rightly mentioned, there are still a lot of people who are not connected to the internet. And you mentioned about Skype, you mentioned about voice calling. So this was something very new when the internet had come. Instead of calling someone over the phone, you were calling someone over the internet. I mean, it was still using the broadband connection and the infrastructure provided by the telecom company, but essentially it was a call using data. I think that's the key differentiator. So you're making like a WhatsApp call that we think about today. So imagine you could make a phone call, but it's like a WhatsApp call. You can call a number, but from your computer instead of a mobile phone. So that's the difference. But that again had a challenge, because it was not accessible to a lot of people who didn't have money, people who were in remote areas where the infrastructure was not available, people who were there stuck very far away from cities where it was very difficult to lay down the infrastructure. I mean, there are two aspects. I mean, you live so far that there is no cost benefit for a company to provide an infrastructure there, or you live in such an inhospitable condition or in such an inhospitable place that even if the company wants to give you infrastructure, it's just not possible physically, or it's too expensive because it'll take a lot of time, money, and effort. So what if we outsource that problem to space? So everyone can see the stars. If you just look up, you see the sky, and you look up at the stars, and you see a plane flying above you, you see birds flying above you. What if we have satellites flying above, which transmit the TV channels that we see? Everyone is familiar with a cable TV. So you have a dish antenna, and what it does is it just points to a place in the sky, and it then receives all the TV channels, and then you watch it on your television. What if now you can broadcast the internet through the same way? So you receive data and send data through a dish antenna, just like you're receiving your TV channels, to a satellite, and then that satellite communicates to other satellites and then transmits that data to the place where it's supposed to go, or receive it from where you want to receive it from. And because it's a satellite, it means it can go on any surface of the planet, over any surface of the planet. So that means anyone who lives in a very remote place, who lives high up in a mountain, or lives in a very remote island, if they have the dish antenna provided by Starlink, they can get access to internet. That's a game changer, I believe.
Yes, absolutely. And as you mentioned, the idea of getting information or data from satellites is not necessarily new, because we've been getting that for our television.
Something, Rinat, that even though what Starlink is trying to do is something very extraordinary, but there have been companies who have tried this in the past. Some have gone bankrupt, some are still surviving, and some are very expensive. So there are still companies that are able to do what Starlink is trying to do, but Starlink has an advantage, and that is reusable rockets. So suppose you want to send satellites. Now satellites cannot be sent by themselves. You have to put them in a car that goes to space. That car is a rocket. So you have to have a rocket, and then you put the satellite in the rocket. The rocket goes to space. The satellite gets launched, and then it's in orbit. Now, the thing is, once it's in orbit, you have to then send another satellite, and you need to have a group of satellites so you can receive the data from different parts of the globe and then route it to somewhere else. So if you don't have a lot of satellites, you don't get good coverage, or you don't get good bandwidth or speed, or you
Right.
get good speed, but the response times are very high, or latency. So that's what they
Yes.
say. So you send a request, but the response, it takes time. So what
So I
Starlink is trying to do,
yeah,
it has reusable rockets, and with those reusable rockets, it can send 100 satellites in one launch. Then maybe a month later, another 100 satellites. So it brings down the cost so drastically.
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, SpaceX was ideally suited for doing exactly this because the space technology that they've been developing for quite a few years, that actually goes hand in hand quite well with building the infrastructure for this kind of technology. And
But
that, yeah.
Rinat, the interesting thing is that SpaceX is actually experimenting with Earth,
Hmm.
this
Ah,
technology.
right. Okay.
Starlink is actually planned for Mars.
To be honest, that's so interesting that you say that because I actually had another talk, maybe in another podcast, that was also quite interesting. That everything Elon Musk is doing, including Tesla,
Is for
the electric
Mars.
vehicle, is for not for this planet. And it kind of did make sense, and it was so mind blowing for a second that yeah, Tesla is such a good car for Earth, but it's actually more designed so it can be driven anywhere, really. And yeah, as
And
you
the
said,
autonomous driving, the self-driving capabilities. So imagine you want to go to Mars and you want certain technologies. You want internet. People won't stop using iPhones and Android phones on Mars, right? If they want to go eventually, and they would want to talk to their loved ones. They want to watch movies and shows on Netflix. But for that, they would need internet. The data is being created on our planet, and they are living in Mars. So how do they receive the data? And even if they receive the data, they need to have good infrastructure in place so that they can talk to each other from different parts of the planet. How do you
absolutely, and it
resolve that?
doesn't make sense to build all of the infrastructure that we built for broadband in Earth to do the all over again in another planet because
Yes. So
if you
have
are building,
satellites.
yeah,
So have satellites, have the Starlink, whatever you have on this planet orbiting. So I mean, for people who are listening to a podcast for the first time. So I'll just quickly explain what Starlink is, because that's the aim of this podcast. I think we've talked a lot about the aspects, but we haven't actually focused on the technology. So Starlink is basically an internet connection for you. So you buy an internet connection from a provider, and you pay for the router, and then you pay for the plan. That's it. And then you get a data cap. You get either say 200 gigabytes of data per month, or you get an unlimited plan where you can download and upload as much data as possible. So Starlink is offering the same. So Starlink will provide you the infrastructure. So here it's a router and a dish antenna and some few cables, power cable, network cable, etc., for about $500, or about £500 for people in the UK. With that infrastructure, they give you an internet speed guaranteed up from 50 Mbps to 150 Mbps. Mbps is megabit per second. Now that's a very good speed. You can watch Netflix, you can have Zoom calls, you can watch YouTube videos. It's perfect for day-to-day usage. But because it's satellite and it's currently in beta phase, it means your connections might drop. Sometimes your speeds may be very high. Sometimes your speeds will be very low, because the infrastructure is still very new and they have not launched all the satellites they are supposed to. Currently, there are about 1,700 satellites in orbit. Their aim is to have about 40,000 satellites to get full coverage with very low latency. But it's in beta phase, so it's still in testing phase. So it's good. They have signed up about 100,000 customers, so it's still doing very well in terms of people who are interested in this technology. Especially people living in remote areas are signing up quite a lot. And their internet plan cost about £99 or $99 per month for unlimited data, and they won't have any other plan. They'll have one plan with unlimited data for that speed. That's it. And the dish antenna that they provide has basically a stick and the antenna. And the antenna can move on its own once it points to the sky to adjust based on where the satellite is. So it needs an open space to direct. So if you have trees around your houses, don't point it there. So Starlink provides you all the instructions. And the way they do that is through their app. So just like for any internet provider these days, you have a My account. So similarly with Starlink, you'll have an Android app or iOS app. You can download that app in your phone and you can control the billing, the connection, the speed, and you can also set up the dish antenna. So it'll tell you which is the right place outside your house where you'll get a good internet connectivity with open skies. Suppose you live in a flat where you don't have the space to provide to keep the dish antenna. They will provide you with a wall mount or a rooftop mount, something like that, which will help you to put it outside your flat, where you can get just like a dish antenna for your cable TV. You can attach it and you can then receive the internet connection. So currently it's in beta phase, and the way it works, the way Starlink works. So this is the ground infrastructure. So the space infrastructure consists of a swarm of satellites. So that means hundreds and thousands of satellites. So currently, as I mentioned, there are 1,700 satellites orbiting our planet. And what they're doing is they are orbiting low Earth orbit, LEO. International Space Station, if people are not familiar, International Space Station is a collaboration between many nations to build a permanent base in space. And that orbits about 400 kilometers Earth's surface. And SpaceX satellites are orbiting about another 150 kilometers above International Space Station. So they are still very close to us. So they might be closer those satellites might be closer to us than maybe some of the places that we visit. So they're not very high, about 500 kilometers high maybe. So now what happens is, because they are so high, so low, because low Earth orbits, we can launch them very quickly and we don't need a lot of energy to send them into orbit. So that's why Falcon 9 rockets, which are currently the reusable rockets used by SpaceX, they are quite effective for launching satellites to low Earth orbits, launching cargo to International Space Station. Because you don't have to go that high, it means you don't need that much fuel. And because you don't need that much fuel, it means your rocket can be a smaller size. And it means that less complications. SpaceX is trying to build bigger rockets, but for now it's focusing on low Earth orbits. Low Earth orbits mean you can launch very quickly. You need a smaller rocket, and you don't need that much fuel. And with reusability, you can launch frequently. So once all the satellites are in place, they're revolving around our planet in a circular path. So there might be, in that path, there could be, say, hundreds of satellites. I'm not sure of the exact number, but say in one circular path, there are hundreds of satellites. So every point in a day, you will have at least one or two satellites crossing your house or over your house. And now imagine that same circle of satellites swarming the planet. Now it goes to another circle. I mean, you're familiar with latitude and longitude on planet Earth. So now think that one of the orbit is one latitude, another orbit is another latitude, and so on, or a longitude, depending upon the orientation of the satellites. So you have satellites orbiting in the longitudinal plane and the latitudinal plane around the Earth. So that means now you can have constant coverage about almost the entire planet, right? Even in Amazon forest, if you can find a gap between the trees and you can see the stars, you can get an internet connection there. So now what happens is the dish antenna is pointing to the satellite. The satellite receives the data. Now it has to send the data somewhere else. In order to do that, currently it has ground stations. So it sends it to ground station and then it uses that infrastructure, the ground infrastructure, to send the data to the required destination. But in the future, what will happen is they'll use lasers. So each satellite will communicate with the other satellite using lasers. And communicating with lasers in space is much faster than fiber optics on Earth, which also use light. So laser is nothing but a light, but light travels faster in vacuum than in fiber optic cables. So imagine the speeds that you can get. And if you have a lot of satellites very close to you and they're all talking to each other instantaneously at the speed of light, then it means you can send data very, very quickly. So that's how Starlink will work. Now, currently the dish antenna is quite heavy, so you cannot use it if you're mobile, in the sense that if you want to use it on a car, say Tesla, you won't be able to use it because it's a bit heavy. But if you have a truck, you can. If you move your house, you can. So currently, uh, every Starlink is linked to the geographical location that you are. So if you move houses or if you move your satellite, then the services will stop working. So you'll have to tell Starlink through the app that, okay, you have moved location, and Starlink will then first check whether you have the internet service available or not, which you can do before moving as well. If you're planning to move to a new place, just check before you have Starlink coverage there. If you have, then move it. If you don't have, then pre-order a new satellite, pre-order a connection for that particular location. And once the coverage is available, you can get a new connection there. So essentially, it is an internet connection powered through space.
Yeah, no, that's quite a lot of insight. Thanks a lot, Amit. I mean, I've also learned quite a bit. I mean, I knew about Starlink, but I didn't know all of these details, which is actually really interesting. I mean, the way you put it is like you first focus on the consumer side, and then you also looked at the infrastructure from SpaceX side. But if we look at, I mean, it's just my opinion. I mean, obviously, whenever there's any new technology, there are early adopters, and who gets the new technology at the very beginning. And for early adopters, I would say definitely go for it as soon as you can. It's an amazing technology, and it will. I have big hopes that it will. Get more and more. It will have mass adoption very soon. But for right now, I mean, obviously, when they launched it for the first time, it was invite only. I think it still is invite only, and
I think it's not invite only, because I tried actually applying for Starlink in my particular address, and it is currently available now in the UK. I think they've launched in a couple of countries as well. So if you go to the Starlink website, there is an FAQ section. You can read everything about Starlink from there, and you can also apply. I think the challenge with Starlink is the upfront cost, which is about $500 for the infrastructure, which is the dish antenna and the router.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. That for early adopters, definitely, go for it if you can afford it. But for me, at the beginning, when it was invite only or something, I sort of submitted my application straight away, and then I did get the invite, and I was told that yes, you can get it. This is the price. But obviously, for practical reasons, I kind of had to pass on that opportunity, because I had internet, and it was a bit too expensive to sort of experiment.
Exactly.
Because also of the monthly cost is a bit higher.
£99. Yes.
Yeah. What you would
compared to the speeds that you normally get.
Yeah. But absolutely, I mean, it's something to check out, and it has a lot of benefits as well. I mean. For the right people right now, because it's in beta phase, as you mentioned, it is, the performance is a little bit fluctuating, but there are a certain niche group of people for whom it would be really helpful, because people who are in rural areas, as you mentioned, where there isn't, the broadband infrastructure isn't even there, and then to dig lines to get to one house or a few houses, the internet providers are just not willing to do that unless you kind of shell out a massive cost, for them to get you that line. So for that kind of situation, Starlink is actually the best and most cost-effective option. But for a lot of people who are living in the city or in densely populated areas, it's probably not for them, not as cost-effective as it can be for them. So right now, it probably, from a consumer point of view, it applies to a certain niche group of people. But, eventually, I think it would, have mass adoption very, well, I don't know if it's very soon, but it will eventually, because it is.
I think the use case, what I'm thinking in my mind is for the remote areas. If you can't afford it, maybe someone can in your village, and maybe you can get one connection, and then with that connection, you can create like a internet cafe, and then people can come and access internet. I think getting access to internet.
You
Sorry.
can also, sorry, you can also probably build a LAN. I mean, we all have LAN
Yes,
networks, right?
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
LAN stands for local area network. I mean, it
You
doesn't
can do
have to
that.
be a LAN in just in your apartment. It could be like a locality where you could sort of share the internet speed. If there's no other option for you to get internet, then yeah, definitely it is one of
And
the.
the other thing is, I mean, of course, it's weather dependent. So on the FAQ of Starlink website, it's written that it can melt snow if it falls, but if there is snow around the area, say on a tree, and it blocks the view, then of course Starlink can't control it, and you might get your speeds might get affected because of rain, thunder showers, and lightning. So you have to be mindful of that as well because of different weathering conditions. Weather conditions. It might affect the speed, but generally speaking, it should work even with clouds in your site. So it doesn't matter if there are clouds or no clouds. I think it should still work. I think the other advantage of having a space infrastructure is, so suppose you have earthquakes and you have wildfires, your cables are gone. But if you have the satellite still working and if you have power, you can actually talk to people around the world using that internet infrastructure, which is crazy. I mean, all you need is a diesel generator or electric battery, and you can power a computer, and then you can start talking to someone.
This is so inspiring, to be honest, because a lot of the groundbreaking technologies, a lot of the like technologies that changed the world, and moved us towards the next, I don't know, next step. It is usually always promises this thing that it is not controlled by anything. Like, for example, internet itself. A government can sort of control the some of the ISP, but there has been some examples where maybe some governments tried to do that, but then regular people still found a way to connect to the rest of the world. And then again, decentralized technologies like blockchain technology and cryptocurrency, that's also becoming more and more popular. And that's another thing that government or any other organizations, like people or organization that controls the world and controls regular people, if you want, you can kind of escape that. That's one of the big steps. And Starlink in a way promises that, because if all the infrastructure is gone, you can still connect to the rest of the world through this technology.
Provided you have electricity.
Yeah. But I mean,
think that's
if you want to live off the grid, if you are that kind of rebellious person that, no, I don't, I'm rebelling against the society, and I'm going to hunt and farm and grow my own food and do all of that, then you would probably have a renewable energy source at home.
solar panels, yes.
Solar panels, or some people are actually doing private wind turbines as well. So
So if you have your own energy source, then you can have your own internet connection through satellite, and you're covered. You don't need any other infrastructure except water, maybe. But we are not talking about water now.
I think this is actually another interesting topic, because due to coronavirus, a lot of people started working from home, and then some people took it one step further, and then they moved away from city, and then they experienced living in a peaceful, close to nature, and in a self-sufficient way. And that actually does, a lot of people did say that they felt like they were more closer to nature. They felt more peaceful, and a lot of people are actually exploring this kind of lifestyle. And Starlink enables that, which is amazing.
Yes, it does, and I think that's the use case. And imagine if you are the first mover. So suppose you are a space company. You are the only one who has reusable rockets. You are the only one who can launch to low Earth orbit very rapidly, and you have now created a satellite, a swarm of satellites orbiting
A
planet Earth,
network of
a
satellites.
network. Now imagine if there is a competitor and who wants to do the same thing. Who wins? It's a first mover advantage, right? So what Starlink is or SpaceX is trying to do is get the first mover advantage. Whoever gets control of those people and that infrastructure orbiting the planet Earth, they control the internet.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there was a time when I thought, oh my God, Google has become such a monopoly. Will there ever be anything that can top that? But then, you never know how technology changes the landscape of, the economy.
Exactly. And then with the recent petrol and the fuel crisis in UK, a lot of people started searching about electric cars. And what came up? Teslas.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I mean, to be honest, a little bit off topic, but I was actually looking at a few other ads of electric vehicles from BMW and Rolls-Royce, and to be honest, I mean, I'm sorry to say, but their car looks so much more cooler now. I mean, obviously, Tesla does have the first mover advantage, so mass people, like, whenever you say electric vehicles, the first thing they think is Tesla. But obviously the big boys are also now coming in the market, but
but
they
they are
don't
getting
have
the features. Yeah, they are
yeah,
getting the features. But what Tesla does is the battery. I think no one is
yeah.
getting a good enough battery for now with the range that Tesla provides. I'm not. I don't own a Tesla. Tesla is not sponsoring this video. I'm just a big fan because I've read and watched a lot of YouTube videos and read about them online. I think you'll have to look at it critically. So there are two things when it comes to mass adoption and why Teslas are such a big hit is firstly their supercharging network, so which enables you to charge rapidly very quickly, especially in UK, US, and many other European nations. So far, they have not been very popular, of course, because of their cost in countries like India and say other developing nations. But I think their range and their network, I think that is crucial. If any other car companies like BMW and Audi and Mercedes or Volvo, they are coming up with electric cars and they are coming up with very very good because they have experience of building cars for a very long time, more than what Tesla has. So of course they are going to build a good car, but will you be able to charge that car on a trip that you're making, say a 200 mile or 300 500 kilometer trip, and will your battery last for that long before you have to recharge? I think that those are the questions that we need to ask when we talk about electric cars.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, Tesla has the advantage of, the R&D of battery technology. But then again, you never know how the landscape changes. But
True,
yeah,
very
yeah.
true.
I mean, they do have the first mover advantage of people know about Tesla as soon as you talk about electric vehicles. But the same way, people would know about Starlink as soon as they talk about satellite internet. And I do wonder, like, if there are more competitors, and there could very well be. I mean, they're big
There
players,
are, Rinat.
you know.
The thing is, those competitors, they are lagging is the reason they are lagging is they don't have the kind of reusable rockets that SpaceX has. So they have satellites, they are in orbit, but they are big satellites. They have
But
fewer
eventually,
satellites.
yeah, yeah. But eventually there will be. I mean, Virgin Galactic, and then
Blue Origin,
Blue
Amazon's Blue
Origin. Yeah,
Origin,
yeah.
they
So
are planning.
there will be, and what I wonder is, if Starlink already has a network of thousands of satellites, how would another network be? I
Exactly.
mean, obviously they have to be in a different height from Earth to so they don't all collide together. I'm sure there is a lot more complicated calculation that goes on for to sort of
Yes, to
find
place
the
them in orbit.
parts.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
And
yeah,
imagine you are going to space. So who owns space? Who regulates space?
and
So that's the
also
question.
if as we progress, there probably will commercial space flights and stuff, and then they have to actually calculate so they don't knock over some
Yes.
of these satellites on its way up. So these are some interesting
And
problems.
there are the other challenges of space observation. So people in astronomy, they say that, okay, SpaceX now has so many satellites, they are blocking our view of the stars
Yes, yes.
because they reflect light. And so SpaceX took notice and they started putting a code that doesn't reflect light
Mhm.
so much so that it doesn't interfere with the observation. But imagine if you have so many satellites and they're reflecting light and you have to observe a point in space. uh, constantly, and because of the satellites, you get that noise. It's not acceptable.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of other cons, but uh, let's see what happens, because I think it's all about going to Mars. How do you create an internet infrastructure for Mars? How do you create reusable rockets? How do you launch very quickly? How do you send cargo to space very quickly? I think those are the kind of challenges which Elon Musk is trying to solve. How do you? So Elon Musk is also in the solar business as well through Solar City. I think that's the name of his company that makes and installs solar panels. So that is also again important, because if you have seen the movie The Martian, the protagonist, he uses solar panels to recharge his vehicle every day. It takes time, but that's one of the energy source. So you have a lot of solar energy. How can you harness that? And then Tesla also has a battery company. So whatever energy that you get from the solar, uh, if you can't store it, what's the point? Because you're charging the whole day, but if you can't store it and reuse it in the night, what's the point? So then you have a battery company, and Tesla is, of course, sorry, Elon Musk is, of course, focusing on battery technology through Teslas and also through his other companies. So he's moving in the right direction, but let's see who wins this game.
Yeah, this actually reminds me of a topic in business and logistics that I read. Like, when you start a business, if your business is doing well, you want to expand, and you can either expand vertically or horizontally. Expanding vertically meaning that, maybe if you're an ice cream company, you're selling ice cream, you go, you create another company or a subsidiary which actually supplies or manufactures the milk or other ingredients. So that's moving vertically. That you go through the supply chain of all of the ingredients, and you go to the actual very root, and that's your line of expansion. Or you could go horizontally, where you open more and more branches, and that you gain, you keep your ice cream company, but you reach more customers in different cities or whatever. But what Elon Musk is doing with all of these different ventures, this is such an interesting way of looking at it, because he is moving. I don't know whether I could call it virtually or vertically or horizontally, because he's actually looking at the customer experience, the user experience, and he's filling all the needs of that cycle. So yeah, you need to generate renewable energy, and then you need to store the renewable energy and in a battery, and then you need to use the renewable energy from the battery, to go from place A to place B. And then while doing that, you're getting artificial intelligent robot giving you directions with OpenAI, and then you're using the internet while you're moving to a remote location from Starlink. I mean, it's
And you forgot about the mind control, Neuralink.
yes. So you're probably going to be experiencing all of this from a computer. But yeah, no, I mean, this is such an interesting way. I mean, because in logistics, business expand in this way. But what Elon Musk is doing is that he's expanding not based on the supply chain or the logistical side, but he's expanding based on the user experience, and whatever it takes to go full circle with all the different things that the user needs. And that's probably the new age of looking at expanding businesses.
I think infrastructure would be crucial. I mean, for the ground part. So Amazon, when Amazon was built, Jeff Bezos said he had the infrastructure. He had the credit card or the payments thing matured. He had the internet, so he didn't have to build the internet. The internet was already there. Then he had the postal system, the US postal system for the logistics. So they already had the network of posting to different parts of the country. So when Amazon actually was created, he had the necessary infrastructure. And SpaceX is, I think, trying to build that infrastructure. What do you do with that infrastructure is the next step of business. Like, okay, I have now all these Tesla autonomous self-driving cars. What can I do with it? Can I lease it? Can I rent it out? Can I use it for some other purposes? I have these solar panels. I have Starlink. What can I use Starlink for? Maybe I can use Starlink for something else. Maybe I sell some other products. Now I
Mm.
do remote sensing because I have so many satellites. If I put cameras on them, maybe I can now do remote sensing. I can see what's happening on the planet and I can sell that data to people. So I don't know what the plan is, but he's
That is
building the
scary,
infrastructure
right?
slowly.
Very scary to
I mean,
have
but
private
that's
companies
how you
do that.
evolve, right? From one level to another. So we build the infrastructure on planet Earth, but planet Earth, because of global warming, rapid climate changes, fluctuations in the temperatures, environment, lots of earthquakes, lots of floods, lots of wildfires, rainfall, etc. And with all that, our infrastructure gets affected. Now you build all that infrastructure, and you know that sunlight is going to be everywhere in the solar system. So how do you leverage that? How do you store energy in a battery? And then how do you have that link of satellites infrastructure to communicate data from maybe one planet, say Earth to Moon to Mars, Mars to Moon, Mars to Earth, etc. So I think he's heading in the right direction because those are problems that needs to be solved.
Yes, yes, absolutely. But then again, if you are living in Mars and if I am living in Earth, I would get the premiere of a new movie release 11 minutes earlier than you do in Netflix.
True, very true. Yeah, that's
But,
always there, but still 11 minutes is not bad. I mean, even
yeah,
if you watch something live, it's anyway a few seconds late. So you see the goal in the stadium, but when someone hears it on the radio, someone sees it on the telly, it's a few seconds late, maybe a 30 seconds delay. So you're still not seeing that in real time, but it's okay.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Um,
So it's
but
all
no,
relative in the end.
that is true. That is true. I mean, yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it as well. Yeah, no, this has been a really insightful conversation. I've learned a lot. I hope our audience did too. There was a lot of information from you, and I feel like I was able to give the audience some
Yes.
different perspective to look at this technology with. And yeah, again, I've said this earlier as well. If you're an early adopter, that kind of person who gets excited with new technology, and if you can afford it, definitely go for it. You will have the early movers advantage of knowing and uh, using it. And yeah, for the rest of us out here, I mean, we're still like really hopefully waiting for it to become more usable or more sort of value for money in densely populated areas as well, and then we can also take advantage of it.
Yeah, I think Starlink is working on that because once the adoption increases, they can lower down the cost of deploying the infrastructure. So what they are anticipating is once they have more satellites in place and they have more customers, they can bring down the cost of that first bit of infrastructure for which you currently have to pay half a grand.
Hmm. Yeah.
So it's still a lot of money. But if they can reduce the cost, the availability goes high. People who are able to buy it increases. So yeah.
Absolutely.
And um, uh, for those of us, I mean, those of you who are watching or listening to this podcast, the reason why we selected this topic is because this is more to do with the infrastructure than with some kind of software. Some of the topics that we are trying to now tackle are more hardware related than software related. So yeah, watch out this space.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And again, yeah, if you guys have any feedback of what we've talked about, or if you have any idea of what we should talk about in future, definitely reach out to us. Whenever we get any emails, we definitely do take into account and choose our topics based on that. So yeah, thank you very much, and hope to see you guys again next week.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.